name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. Amen. My dear faithful sheep of our Lord Jesus Christ, a few weeks ago I woke up reconciled with the new Rome. A few weeks ago I was told that the Society of St. Pius X needs to reunite itself officially and be recognized in a canonical structure by what we call the new Rome, the modernist Rome of today. As a consequence, the Society of St. Pius X is undergoing its own Vatican II. That is, the imposition of a change of course of doctrine by channels of authority. Now, the Society of St. Pius X, the unity of it, depends on one cause, which is the unity of its stand in the matters of faith. Just like the unity of the Catholic Church is one, it exists. The first cause of the existence of the Catholic Church is the Catholic faith. If you change, if you attack the Catholic faith, then the Church is destroyed. It's indestructible because it will always keep the faith. But the Society of St. Pius X is comparable to that. For it to continue to exist, it needs to have the same stance of the faith. Not just the Catholic faith, but a stance against what endangers the Catholic faith. And that's why 2 weeks ago I woke up reconciled with New Rome. And this is a massive disaster for the Society of St. Pius X. We are all praying that this crisis may be averted. Nothing has been signed yet. We've been putting all the brakes now for 2 weeks. But we need to pray very hard. This is the worst time of crisis of the Society of St. Pius X. And if you want to know how to proceed, you need to consider who is the new Rome. Because if the new Rome is okay, then you have to join it back. If Benedict XVI is a good pope, if he does not put the faith in danger, it is rash, it is pride, it is arrogance and disobedience to refuse to reunite with him because he is not endangering the faith. Because he's not endangering the faith, then it's only your pride or your arrogance that keeps you away from rejoining Benedict XVI. But is he good or is he bad? This is the determining element in the decision we take not to rejoin the new Rome. Is the way the Pope is actually right now. So you need to know who Benedict XVI is. He is the Society of St. Pius X, most organized, most determined, most effective enemy. He is a German mind, very consistent mind. And he has pursued the traditional movement by trying to divide it, to take out all its thread year by year for 30 years at least. Starting with the creation of the Mater Ecclesiae Institute, with then the fall of Don Gérard, the fall of the Society of St. Peter, and all the other organizations. He has studied us consistently and most effectively, and he has been very good at dividing the traditional movement. So in the past, he was well known as being the worst adversary of the Society of St. Pius X. But we need to go back a bit further. It starts with his bad seminary training. His bad seminary training led him, because he was smart, to become the advisor of one of the worst theologians of the Council of Vatican II, Karl Rahner. And this in turn led him to write books of theology. One of them is Principle of Catholic Theology, which I read. Now in this book, he clearly states a new form of modernism, a better one, modernism in 3D. Instead of modernism in 2D, as condemned in Passion D, It's a modernism in 3D. That is, when you are talking to old ladies and to Catholics who really believe in the faith, you talk to them at their level. If you find somebody else who is a liberal Catholic, then you can deny more dogmas and change formulas. And then there is on top those who know better than everybody else, and they only know that Jesus is not God, and that he preached about love of the others, of loving one another. And that's it, because what's on top is the essence of Christianity. Those 3 layers of belief, and more, and in general, the fact is that when you are talking to people, you must adjust yourself to their state of mind. So there are no stable concepts. There is no stable truth. And so there are different ways of talking about doctrinal reality. Benedict XVI is also the founder, and the one who runs the Communio movement, which is the same theology. Is that you mutate dogmatic concepts, but don't go too far. Because if you go too far into mutating dogmatic concepts, you end up splitting the church. So you gotta go at a certain pace into mutating dogmatic concepts. This is not, a modernism like Schillebeck's Congar Ranin. It's a different type of modernism. I want you to understand that very clearly. It is much more dangerous because it is 3-dimensional, or it's like a plane whose wings are changing. It's like a hydra you can cut, and it grows again. It has several shapes, several forms within the same brain of Benedict XVI. This is what you have to understand, because the modernism of Benedict XVI will include traditional trappings. It will include, the love for, nice golden crosses. It will include golden vestments. It will include saying sometimes the Mass facing God. It will. It will include giving permission for us to say Mass in St. Peter's Basilica. But it's still modernism, and it's a worst form of modernism. This led in turn, this theology of Cardinal Ratzinger led him to become the prefect of the Congregation of the Faith under Pope John Paul II. And he's the grand architect of all the disastrous moves, all the disastrous pronouncements of Pope John Paul II. When the cardinals re-elected him after the death of John Paul II on the 1st of April 2005, after the death of John Paul II, he was elected on this account, because he is the brain of John Paul II. You could say that as for Vatican II, the heart of Vatican II is John Paul II. But the brain of Vatican II, the brain that applies Vatican II, is Cardinal Ratzinger, and then later Pope Benedict XVI. And so we need to consider now. Well, that was Benedict XVI in the past, but maybe now it's better. Maybe he has turned around. He's made a massive U-turn, just like we do a U-turn in the month of May. Maybe he has done a U-turn, a conversion, or something is better, is moving towards religion. Is that the case? It is not the case, my dear faithful. It's not the case from what we see and what we hear from him today. For when he beatified John Paul II, he said, I am beatifying this man on account of his work at the Council, and especially on account of his work in applying the Council of Vatican II. That's the reason why, that's the chief reason why he believes that John Paul II is a saint. John Paul II is a saint for him because John Paul II has applied Vatican II for the benefit of the Church. And let us consider 4 points, 4 false religion that prove us that he is worse than his predecessor. Because in him, modernism is more deliberate, more consistent, and more methodical. Because he's not the heart, he's not going to go for plumes, and he's not going to go for crazy, unseemly things. He is going to be more deliberate in his modernist approach. I discovered that a few months after he was elected in India. on the question of Hinduism. You know, with respect to Hinduism, the Novus Ordo wants to mix the Hindu ceremony and the Catholic ceremonies. And so in a bulletin of the diocese, this article was published. There was his pronouncement as a pope on inculturation in India. And he said he criticized inculturation in India. That sounds nice. But he criticized inculturation in India because the Indian inculturation of the Indian bishops would not take into account the Buddhist religion. The Buddhist religion, which was born in India, in the view of Pope Benedict XVI, had to be included into the process of inculturation of the Catholic Church. So it's one step beyond John Paul II. And I'm not doing any exaggeration. This is what I read and this is what I saw. With respect to Islam, Benedict XVI didn't kiss the Quran. Now I grant this. But unlike Pope John Paul II, who went also to the mosque, when Benedict XVI went to a mosque, he took off his shoes. He went to the mihrab, which is a special place in the mosque that faces Mecca, and faced Mecca. And then he folded his hands in the shape of Muslim shape of the hand folding. And then he prayed at the same time as the other Muslims at the appointed time of the Muslim prayer. This is something that John Paul II would never have done. He has done also communicatio in sacris with other religions, but John Paul II at least didn't do communicatio in sacris with Islam. Now this is the first pope to have come in a mosque and to pray in a mosque. And this is very recent. It did not happen, 10 years ago. It happened 4 or 5 years ago. So this happens once, yes. And probably I don't think it's going to happen again. But he's just wanted to make a point. It's like a surveillance camera. It's very boring, you don't see anything. But when the murderer comes and kills the person, it's horrible, on a few frames. It's very horrible, it's more horrible than his predecessor, but otherwise you don't see anything. And then there is Judaism. Well, Judaism makes up in Benedict XVI's ecumenism for his lack of enthusiasm for Hinduism and Islam. He doesn't go to the mosque every year, he doesn't go to the Hindu temples every year, but he goes to the synagogues every year. And he goes with his pontifical garments and he gives long speeches. And his long speeches are praise of the Jewish religion. In these speeches, he clearly states the heresy that Judaism, that the old law of Moses is not abolished. And the covenant is still valid, which goes directly against what our Lord did by dying for us on the cross, and directly against the teaching of St. Paul the Apostle in his epistles. How is that possible to go so far in ecumenism for the Jews? In such a way that it seems even for him, one religion, all religions are true for him, but one religion is truer or better than the others. It's the Jewish religion. And his choice is very judicious because Judaism is the religion that denies the divinity of our Lord Jesus Christ the most strongly and the most vehemently, the most adamantly. It's a falsest of all the false religions. And that's the religion that within the other religions that he extols the most. But it doesn't bar Benedict XVI from having a great devotion and admiration for Martin Luther. Because when he went to the Protestant temple, he didn't do like his predecessor. Again, he put on his pontifical regalia, and then the stole and all this beautiful... and he came in, and instead of doing like John Paul II, he took part in the Protestant service. Not the second part, because he's conservative. But he took part in the first part of the Protestant service. And there, he gave an eulogy of Martin Luther, just like John Paul II. But then he goes more into details. He says that the motions of the soul of Luther are pretty much from the Holy Ghost. They are entirely justified. And then he goes well into the doctrine of Martin Luther, and states how necessary and how useful was what Martin Luther did. The only thing which is bad, the church got split in two, that's sad, but otherwise Martin Luther is a very profound soul that deserves our praise. There again, my dear faithful, notice that you are one step further away from the truth. It's much more serious than John Paul II, because John Paul II was erring with his heart. He was also very smart, but he was mainly erring with his heart. This Pope errs with his brain, and then the heart follows. But he errs with his brain. It's much more deliberate. Benedict XVI is the first Pope to have breached the Catholic doctrine on artificial contraception. The medias understood very well what he said. He said they understood that he opened the door for the error to come in. He's the first one who conceded on the doctrine of artificial contraception. When he said that male prostitutes could use condoms as a beginning of a moralizing process. It's all modernist coded phrases. That simply opened the door. Everybody understands it's an opening of the door. And sure enough, Father Ortiz told me that in Caribbean islands, it's in the Dominican Republic, the priests were distributing condoms after this statement of Pope Benedict XVI. And then, of course, he's very wily. He's going to try to retract or do something, but the door is open. It's like Vatican II. Vatican II says something, retracts, but then still the door is open. It's a much more dangerous modernism, because they give you always deniability. After they affirm something, they deny it. And so that's why it's very important that we focus on the doctrine. Also, I need to mention, is the first Pope who invited atheists at the Assisi III meeting. John Paul II did not invite atheists. The first one to meet a female bishop, in a bishop's attire. That happened during his visit in England. And to give communion to a Protestant. John Paul II didn't give the communion to Brother Roger of Thésée. Benedict XVI gave him Holy Communion. And then he died a few days later. Maybe a sign. But he goes on many issues. He goes one step further than his predecessor. And that's why we need to study his doctrine. That's why I cannot understand why the publication of the study of the thoughts of Benedict XVI by Monsignor Tissot-Marais was forbidden, and is still forbidden in the United States, and why it was delayed in the French district. Because this is what we need in order to make the correct decision whether we're going to return to the New Rome or stay back for a while. We need to know, before you sign a contract, you need to know who you are signing the contract with. And then lastly, if wolf is a wolf, it thinks as a wolf, it acts as a wolf, and then the wolf kills as a wolf. We are in the process of seeing millions and millions of souls being killed, being slaughtered by the authorities of the church. If you go and see those souls in hell and ask them why they are in hell, why they didn't do penance, they will answer you, we are in hell today because we were not taught how to do penance for our sins. Or we were not taught, as we are just about to join the Catholic Church, we were not told to enter the church. Go and ask these souls. And so if a wolf is a wolf, it kills as a wolf, because it is a wolf. And now we are facing the massive killing of millions and millions of souls at the hand of the governing body of the Catholic Church. It's a fact. So, Benedict XVI, for instance, is not saying the traditional Mass. He's not. He said it in the past to divide us. He said it in the past, in order to take care of Don Gérard, or in order to start the seminaries of the Fraternity of St. Peter, Or he did say the traditional Mass for the symposiums, the reunions about the study of the Reform in the Fongombo Abbey. In order to divide our movements. Yes, he says the traditional Mass. But now, is he saying the Mass, the traditional Mass in public like that? No. When he said the Mass facing God in the Sistine Chapel, he says, he made the point that I didn't say the traditional Mass. And I just said it facing God because that's the way the Sistine Chapel is. I never meant to do it facing the Orient. Even though facing the Orient is a nice museum piece. So he is not going towards tradition. That is a lie. He's not behaving differently from before. He's still diffusing those deathly lies. And he does not believe in a true Mass. For him, it's a museum piece. Very recently, I read in the Wall Street Journal about his visit in Cuba. Very interesting. You can go and meet Fidel Castro. I don't think it's a sin for a pope. All right? Whatever. If Castro wants to talk to me, I'll talk to him. But very surprisingly, Castro had the question for Benedict XVI. He said, why did you make all this change in the liturgy in the 1960s? Why didn't you stay the same? Because now you've got 6% Cubans go to Mass only. The rest, 94%, doesn't go to Mass on Sunday. And guess what was the answer of Benedict XVI? He said, we have to change for the sake of renewal. Now what kind of renewal is that when you only have 6% of the population that goes to Mass in Cuba? It is not renewal. That answer of Benedict XVI is a typical answer of a die-hard modernist. He still has renewal on his mouth when everything is destroyed. Of course, at other times you could say there's loss of faith, blah, 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 but we are going to renew the church nonetheless, with charismatism, Opus Dei, and all these things. But notice that he will never return to the traditional Mass. He doesn't want it. So, his policy is to help all these charismatic contraptions, all these charismatic communities, these Christian communities, the neo-ecumenical movement, the Focolari, and there are many of these, and the Opus Dei, and many movements of the false restoration. He does this in order to recuperate whatever is left of the Catholic piety that survived at Vatican II, to put it in a machine, rehash it, and out that it comes minced faith. That goes down the sewers of all heresies again, the sewer of modernism. He just recycles whatever true faith is left in a sheep. He takes it, puts it in a machine, recycles it, and destroys it and puts it back into the sewers. These movements are not for renewal, but it's in order to bring people back into modernism. And for this, he's very, very consistent. So he is a genius. He is intelligent. He is smart. Woe to those who underestimate him. He is a very powerful enemy. It's one of the main rules of the art of war. You do not underestimate your enemy, you study him. Otherwise, if he is good, he will defeat you. And then, you want to know who Benedict XVI is? Look at whom he appoints. The first one that he appoints as number 2 is the congregation of the Secretary of State, Cardinal Bertone. And Bertone is just as bad as Vio and Casaroli, as his predecessor. Bertone is the one who buried Fatima. Bertone just followed plans that were given to him by Cardinal Ratzinger at the time, because Cardinal Ratzinger was the head, the intellectual head of the Vatican. But Bertone is the one who spread the lies about Fatima and who blocks the consecration of Russia to the Immaculate Heart of Mary. And Bertone, runs the congregation of the Secretary of State, so that church and state are separate in all Catholic states, in all the states of Catholic population. And he preaches secular humanism as secular democracy as the best solution. for all the states throughout the world. And also, the Secretariat of State does indirectly persecute the Christians throughout the world by torpedoing their efforts to stay away from the patriarchal church, for instance, in case of China, by torpedoing the efforts of the Uniates from staying away from the Orthodox. That's the job of the Secretary of State. That's what they are doing right now. They are helping the persecutors of the church by telling those who want to stay Catholics to rejoin their persecutors. And the same thing is happening in the Muslim world, where they preach religious liberty, which is no solution for the persecutions of the Muslim states. In the past, Catholic governments would twist the arms of the Muslim governments so that the Catholics would be at least allowed to have private worship, which Islam does not allow. At least that would be granted by the Islamic powers. But if you preach religious liberty to the Muslim states, they are going to ignore you. And next in line is number 3. Number 3 used to be number 2 because the modernists don't care about the faith, so they put faith in number 3. But number 3 is Cardinal Levada. Cardinal Levada, we know him well because our faithful know him well. When he was Archbishop of San Francisco, he had parishes for gays and lesbians. One of the leading priests of the tradition in the US, Father Haidt, he now passed away, was separating himself from his diocese, which is full of gays. So he was convoked in the office of Cardinal Levada, and Cardinal Levada had lots of theologians ready to fire at him, canonical reasons. But Father Haidt surprised them all. He says, "Yeah, Bishop, yeah, I'm joining, yeah. Oh, that's great, yeah, but on one condition, which is, well, I don't want to see any gay priests in my presbytery, in my priory, and I don't want to see any of them around my ministry, around my parish, or dealing with my parish and my faithful. If you secure me against all these gay priests, then I'm in. Then otherwise, I'm out." And Cardinal Levada said, "No, I can't grant you that petition. I cannot say yes to you." So Father Haidt says, "Same here," and he left. Very clear. And the job of Cardinal Levada, together with the Ecclesial Commission, is to also take care of us. Now, why should we entrust ourselves, entrust our situation to this type of people? Why do we go with these people in the first place? Then the next congregation we need to study is the Congregation for the Nomination of Bishops. The Congregation for Bishops. Because it's at the hand of the local bishops that the souls go to hell on a local level. Souls here in Korea, they go to hell because, for instance, they die in their mortal sin. They die in their mortal sin because they didn't go to confession and communion. Why didn't they go to confession and communion? Because their priest didn't tell them that they have to go to confession regularly. They have to stay away from sin. They didn't preach on hell. They didn't preach on the salvation of the souls, on the last 5 things. They didn't preach on the necessity of prayer. That's because of the local parish priest. But the local parish priest is put in his parish, is empowered by the local bishop. And that's why it's one of the most crucial sins of the New Rome, is to organize the nomination of bad bishops everywhere in the world. You're going to have maybe more conservative bishops than the others, but they are all novus ordo. And everywhere in the world you have this massacre of souls. This massacre of souls which takes place at every local level because of the local bishops. And these local bishops are there because of the Congregation for Bishops. Because bishops in normal times are nominated by the Holy Father. That's why Archbishop Lefebvre consecrated bishops without the Vatican's permission, because he realized that the Vatican does not want to give one single traditional bishop to the world. Not one single. Not even a bishop taken from the ranks of the Fraternity of St. Peter or the Institute of Christ the King. Not a single one. Then you may say that there is a Bishop Rifan in Campos, but not even there. Because the official bishop of Campos is not Bishop Rifan. It is a novus ordo bishop of Campos put in place there. by the Vatican. Bishop Rifan is just in charge of the recycling of the faithful of Campos. But he is not the official bishop of Campos. Rome doesn't want a single traditional bishop in the world. And this is happening day by day. That is, each time in the Osservatore Romano, you got at the end, at the back pages, you got the nominations. Which bishop is put in charge where? Day by day, and there is no chance, no change, day by day. So you can update yourself about what's going on in Rome. Are they traditional or are they not traditional? You just need to see the last issue of the Osservatore Romano, and you know who Rome appoints. Because to govern is to delegate. If you delegate modernist, you are a modernist. That's obvious. It's like your prime minister, he's going to appoint all the departments of the states. Because he rules this country. He was voted in. Well, same thing in here with the Pope. So I am not going to believe in the return of Rome until I see a change in the nomination of bishops. At least a few, but not even one is granted. Not even one in order to make it look traditional. Not even one. Not even one who is not really traditional, but looks very, very traditional and has been appointed by the system. No, not even that. They are not taking any chance. The devil wants all the souls to go to hell at the hands of the local bishop. So we don't need to go too far. I'm not going to go through all the other discussions, unity of Christians, justice and peace, liturgy and everything. We don't have the time. But I hope you get the idea. It's the same policy for the other congregations, all the other organs of government in Rome. It's the same policy. I will just mention the one last one, the Smoli, the Ecclesiastic congregation. The Ecclesiastic congregation is the one armed to the Pope. So that arm is strangling as we speak. They are strangling. They are requesting the Institute of Good Shepherd, an institute that joined the New Rome 7 years ago. They are requesting them to teach Vatican II in their seminaries, to teach Vatican II publicly, to say the new Mass sometimes, at least, or once in a year, and to collaborate with the local diocese, with the local bishops. And Father Aguirre says, but this is not what you promised us 7 years ago. Well, that's too late. You are under us. You need to obey us. If you want to be recognized by us, you have to comply with these conditions. That's why Father Aguirre, called Father de Cacré, says, don't sign. Don't sign with the New Rome. And so, with one arm, they are squeezing, they are killing. A traditional, some order that was trying to stay traditional. And with the other arm, they want to embrace us. This is happening in the same month as we would have signed. Hopefully the agreement was thwarted, but this is what's happening. It's not possible. So how are we going to believe that after 6 or 7 years, Rome is not going to bring us the same conditions? And it could be even faster. So some people in America say that the society wants to marry the new Rome and thinks that it is going to keep its virginity. The virginity of its faith. It's a complete illusion. And this leads us to the second thing. What does it entail then to join Rome in these conditions? If Rome is that bad, what does it entail? Because you're talking about the Mercedes, BMW and Porsche of modernism there. The most effective modernism. What does it entail if you join that modernist authority, if you put yourself under Benedict XVI, what does it entail? Of course, Providence has intervened, nothing has been signed, we are still... but we need to know what happens once we agree to be under them. Well, first thing you lose is the confession of the faith. That is, you are not anymore making a stand against the heresies and errors and against the operation of sending souls to hell worldwide at the hand of the new Rome. You are losing the stand of the faith. But the confession of the faith is inseparable from the virtue of faith, especially when the faith is in danger. When the faith is in danger, It's your duty to confess the faith. That's why it's just my duty to warn you, my faithful. It is my duty. If I don't warn you, I am guilty of misleading you. And that's why there is a sacrament for the confession of the faith, a sacrament of confirmation, on the forehead, so that you don't blush for your faith. You stand for the faith. It is your duty to stand for the faith when the faith is in danger. Just like I'm fighting for the faith, you faithful are soldiers of Christ, and you must help me in the fight for the faith as much as you can, according to your abilities and according to the denial of the faith which is facing you. But the confession of the faith is inseparable. That's what St. Paul says, we believe for our justification, that is the cleansing of our heart, but for our salvation, for ours going to heaven, we have to confess. Because you would not be here, traditional Catholics, 70 of you today, if nobody would have told you there is a Mass here, come join tradition. You are all here because somebody else told you that tradition was alive and well in soul. So you believe for the justification of your heart, but for your getting into heaven, says St. Paul, you have to confess. So if we join, if we put ourselves under Benedict XVI, we lose that confession that he is killing the sheep, that he is wrong, that he is a new Rome. So it's an immense duty. It's our first primary duty. But it's true that Rome wants to put us, no, it doesn't, Rome doesn't want us to deny the faith at first. They just want to put us in a container, in a containment unit. It's like a nice prison with AC, internet, DVDs, good food, anything you order, delivery with a nice furniture, nice ceiling, nice, everything is nice, tennis courts, everything, but it's a prison. You cannot tie the Catholic faith. You cannot put it in a container. No way. That's what St. Paul says, woe to me if I don't evangelize. And this leads, this loss of the confession of the faith is also the loss of our hope. What do we hope for? What are we praying for? Are we praying for a grey Pope? Because he's not black anymore, he's grey, so hallelujah, everything is great? No. We are praying that Rome converts, stops being the seat of the Antichrist. We are praying that Rome really becomes pure white. That's the only thing that is going to rescue the Church. Otherwise, our hope is very limited. If you are happy with the modernist Pope, what kind of hope is that? And the Apocalypse is full of the mention of the false hopes, the deception of the devil. That, like the city of Sardis, which is taken from the rear, or the pale horse of the Apocalypse. And the pale horse of the Apocalypse comes after the heresy, which is black. Heresy leads to persecution, which is red. And then the pale horse, since persecution makes more Christians than less, it becomes the diluting of truth and error. That's a pale horse, that's liberalism. That horse, which is pale, neither black nor white, has a rider. That rider's name is Death. That is, a pope which is neither black or white is more deathly than a pope would be outrightly and openly mistaken. That Paul VI is much less dangerous than Benedict XVI, because Paul VI, you see it on his face that he's no sword. It's written on his face. He can't hide it. Whereas Benedict XVI is much more dangerous. The rider of this horse, mark my word, the name of the rider of this horse is Death. That's why Benedict XVI, as of now, even though he is the Catholic Pope, is validly and legitimately in charge of the visible church, Benedict XVI is Death, because he looks so much like the pale horse of the Apocalypse. And the locusts of the Apocalypse, they have the appearance of charity, says St. John. Read the Apocalypse, chapter 9, verse 7. They have the appearance of being nice, of being charitable. So don't expect Our Lady to make half of a job. She will grant us a good Pope. It's in the prophecy of St. Malachi as well. But don't expect her to do half a good job. She doesn't do half a job. If she meets the serpent, she crushes the head of the serpent entirely. She doesn't turn the serpent into a better serpent. That's what Eve was trying to do. And we know the result. And then charity, in the second sense of today, an agreement with the New Rome is a denial of the mission of the SSPX. The mission of the SSPX is to rescue the souls from the clutches of the monster. Is to keep our faithful out of the range of the leash of the dog. As Padre Pio said, if you are out of the range of the leash of the dog, you're fine. It's an operation rescue. Our goal is to rescue you from the novice ordo. It's not our mission to bring you back to the official church before it's time. It's like a fireman rescues people from buildings on fire, carries people out, the building is still burning, and I'm bringing you back in because the flames have subsided a little bit. Yeah, but the building is still burning. No, it's burning less. Allow me to bring you back to the building. It might collapse on you, but allow me to bring you back to the building. That's the same comparison. There is a mission of the society given by the founder. And before he dies, he tells us, you wait until it's safe to cross. And also the problem is that there are many priests in the society that don't agree with this, all of a sudden, May 2012, 180-degree turn. We don't agree with it. So if you proceed without our agreement, then you're going to tear us, because we are not going there. I am not going to the New Rome as of now. I refuse. And so as a consequence, you're going to be obliged to order my superior, Father Onoda, to bar me from preaching or spreading my ideas. You might go even further, expel me from the society. And then call the police to throw me across the street of Cannon Road in Manila. It might go as far, that far. Because once we have lost our unity in the position of the faith, then we tear ourselves. And we're going to look like sects. We're going to make the lawyers very rich in determining, this chapel, which one is which. The lawyers are going to have the time of their lives. It's going to be a disaster. And with this infighting within us, then the newcomers will be prevented from joining us. And many of our faithful will leave us. And also you will join the New Rome, but without anti-liberal elements. So you join the New Rome in a state of a great weakness. And so it's a disaster. What's going to happen to the little ones? And how would you have said we cannot rule out a split? The job of a leader is to rule out a split, to prevent a split. Because the common good of an organization is its unity. So you prevent the split. And the only thing that gathers us in the society of St. Pius X is the truth and nothing else. And isn't the split within us what the New Rome is always looking for? Aren't the Selvacantists rejoicing today at seeing us, tearing us to pieces? So suicide is a sin against charity. You have no right to split us. And if there is a problem in the congregation, you must address the splitting problem in the general chapter and solve it, so that the society endures in the future. And it's also a sin against the virtue of prudence. So we saw faith, hope, charity, and then it's a sin against prudence. Because Archbishop Lefebvre never trusted the New Rome. Even when he was in negotiation with the New Rome, he never trusted them. He was negotiating them in order to please his entourage, which was very dovish at the time. Now it's the other way around. But he did. And then he talked to them, and he realized that they are very good, that they almost deceived him. And he admitted that he made a mistake talking to them, and that they almost fooled him. So who do we think we are? Do we think we are smarter than Archbishop Lefebvre? Who do we think we are? We are not smarter than him. He has a lot of experience. He was
He knew the church backwards and forwards. He knew the whole creeping of the ideas to destroy, to self-demolish the church. Are we smarter than the Archbishop Lefebvre, who told us to wait for clear sign and told us to wait a long time before he died? Why is Archbishop Lefebvre so clear-sighted? Because there is the grace of God, but also there is his intellectual work. His intellectual work was a study of the revolution. Crétino, Joly, Barbier, and the others, Donoso Cortés, all the other authors. He studied them. And then when you study a revolution, you see a revolution happens in stages. It always starts with terror, with massacring, with destruction and everything. But like in the Russian Revolution, there is the new economic policy, the NEP of Lenin, very few years after the start of the Russian Revolution. Every revolution mellows in time, because terror doesn't work anymore. So they have to use something else. It's the Gramsci way. It's, in France, we call it the Thermidorian phase. Well, Thermidor comes after the terror. The reign of terror is ended by Thermidor, with the Directoire. And there, it's, the revolution mellows, becomes nice. And then it begs people that it's not going to kill anyone anymore, but simply wants people to agree with the system, or with the ideas. And then it gets the fighters of Vendée sign the Treaty of La Journée, and they drop their weapons. And only a few, Charette, understand that this is a trap, this is a trick. But once the treaty is signed, then they can kill Charette, isolate him, and kill him. The fight will resume afterwards, but that's the idea. Because they need pontoons. Pontoons, niceness, a new atmosphere, a new form of trust. That's what revolution needs. That's how revolution works. Goes one step backwards and two steps forwards. That's how it pushes year after year. Makes some concessions. That's why in a liberal democracy you have the conservatives and the liberals. Do you think the conservatives have been successful in keeping us with the same laws as 50 years ago? No way. You got abortion, you got all the laws everywhere in the world. Conservatism has never helped. The step backward never helped. It's a trick, my dear faithful. So we have to watch. Watchman, what of the night? Says the book of Proverbs. That is that light within the night that's coming, is that really the light of the day? Or is that some other light? You know, the light of soul on the horizon. Is that the real light or a fake light? Watchman, tell me of the night. Which night is it? Is it still night? Or night is starting to be over? And it's an agonizing question, because there may be some amongst us that believe that the night is beginning to be over, and they want to lay down their weapons against the new world. And the number of these will determine the gravity of the split that might happen in the society of St. Pius X. And it's sin against the virtue of justice. But they say, but Rome is making up for the injustice done to us, poor traditional excommunicated faithful. Well, this is not to repair our injustice that we joined back the new Rome. What we want is to repair the injustice done to the church, not to ourselves. The church, our mother, is being abused by the Holy Father in matters of faith, because our father is drunk with modernism, and we don't accept our father to mistreat our mother. So we have to stand against the father who abuses the mother. We have to. Then the father casts us out. Then after a few days he says, come back in, but keep quiet now, don't bother me. That's what Rome is asking us. We reinstate you back in, but keep quiet. That's not, the son must not return to the house, because he still maintains the same stand. Do not abuse my mother. And it's a sin against fortitude. Because what they give us excommunications, and do we fear all that much their excommunications, when they don't believe in the notion of excommunication. They don't believe in hell. Or if there's a hell, it's empty. Or if there's only one person in hell, it's Bishop Williamson. So they don't believe in hell. So they give us the paper of excommunication, but that paper leads you nowhere. Normally, an excommunication is a ticket to hell. That's why it's frightening. But the one who gives the ticket to hell does not believe hell exists. What kind of excommunication is that? I put it in a nutshell. But it's a fact that those threats of the new Rome are threats for rabbits, but not for us. And I'm not sure the rabbits are scared. So, and it's also a sin against temperance, because we ignore that one of the acts of temperance is to reject flattery. When we came to Rome, they give us all these palaces, high ceiling, beautiful decoration. They had a stay in palace. You know, our theologian stayed in the propaganda in the Holy Office just behind St. Peter's Basilica, and he slept there, I think. They allow us to say Mass everywhere in the Vatican and everything. They give us wonderful meals. They tell us how much we are necessary, we are useful to them, to help them, how great we are. No, in 2000, when we had the pilgrimage in Rome, they told us, how great you are, please come to us. They flatter us, but it's the act, the virtue of temperance, to reject flattery. So it's not, we have to reject this flattery of theirs. Otherwise, it's a sin against temperance that represses pride. The pride of us, which may be that we think ourselves today, 2012, as the great instruments of the resurrection of the church. No, we are not. We are not as yet. As yet, all we do now, we keep the faith. Maybe we will be called the great instruments of the resurrection of the faith of the church when the church actually resurrects. Maybe then. But as of now, all you got to do, my dear faithful, is to keep the faith and keep the stand of the faith. So, as much as I enjoy that power in my priestly office, I curse the very idea of going back to the new Rome. It is absolutely cursed because it leads to death in several different ways. But in 7 dominoes. The first domino is the domino of the faith. If you tilt that domino of the faith, all the other virtues eventually fall down. Faith is not the highest virtue. Charity is supreme, yes. But charity would not exist without the faith. The mother of charity is the faith. Do not touch the faith. If you press the button of the faith on me, you are pressing the wrong button. Because it is the office of the priesthood to defend the faith. The highest obedience is to the faith, because faith itself is an obedience of the intellect to the truth that comes from God. Faith is an obedience. You cannot put faith versus obedience, because faith is the first and foremost obedience. That's the first thing that our Lord is asking us. In the Gospel we see that. And of course the law is charity and obedience. But in normal times, if authority has a faith, then you obey authority, like a corpse, yes. But if you touch the faith, you are pressing the wrong button. And then, third part, and lastly, what is going on today now in the society? Now we had this situation coming for 12 years. We could sense it was coming for 12 years, some gradual mellowing. But we had to give the benefit of the doubt to our superiors. So, for the moment, the treason is averted. Bishop Fele hasn't signed anything. So he remains our beloved and respected Superior General. He has not signed. As long as he doesn't sign, we are still one visibly around him. Alright? His ideas may be confused now, but he hasn't signed. So we are still one family with the possibility of rescuing itself from this split. But that family has to get the problem on the table at the next general chapter. Now we hear many things on the general chapter now. They say it's administrative. It was planned to be administrative because in normal times you settle the current affairs, current problems. But when you have a problem which is not administrative, which is a problem of faith, which is about to destroy the society of St. Pius X, in the name of God, you bring the administration in the back burner, or you talk about it at the end of the general chapter, but you keep on the table the problem which is about to explode us. That's why this chapter should be a doctrinal chapter, so that the society gets to know again what it has to do. It must be a doctrinal chapter. And, well, the devil is going to try to continue to our friend, of course. So now we are not sure anymore if this chapter is going to happen or not. Whether it's going to be postponed, or whether it's going to be simply abolished. Because that's the best, in a government, or administrations rule that way. They first say, there is no problem. And then you show them the problem again. Well, yeah, there might be a problem. We don't know yet if it's there or not. Then you show the problem bigger, And it says, yeah, there is a problem, but we don't know what to do about it. So let's not do a doctrinal chapter about it. And then once the problem has happened, and once the split has happened in the society, well, the problem happened. So there is no need to worry about the problem. All you need to do is to worry about the next problem in the society. That's typical of a weak authority. So, but how did we get there, to this terrible situation of the society? It's out of a loss of clarity. What is very worrying is that that when Arthur Lefebvre would go to Rome, when he goes back by car to Rome, and the next day he talks to his seminarians about what happened exactly. And all what he does becomes public news. Within 48 hours or a few days, becomes public news very rapidly. Complete transparency of Archbishop Lefebvre. And now what we see is that we wake up, reconcile with Rome. That's it. We come in. No explanations, no clarity. That's a very, very bad sign. And then everybody starts to scream, because the plane has lost its gas. And then the pilot puts the gas back on. No, I have not signed yet. I was just joking. The direction is completely erratic. Sign, not sign, sign, not sign. Doctrinal chapter, no doctrinal chapter. Administrative chapter, cancelled, postponed, re-established, advanced. That we hear all these things. There is no clarity, loss of clarity. And then there is a loss of form of due process, because the 2006 general chapter said, and it was stated repeatedly afterwards by all the superiors of the society, that there cannot be a practical agreement with Rome, a canonical solution, or whatever prelature, nice and purple prelature. There can be no purple prelature until we have the same doctrine as Rome. Until Rome rejoins tradition. No doctrinal agreement, therefore no practical agreement. Because practice follows doctrine. Charity follows faith. So we have first to make sure that Rome agrees with us doctrinally. Then we can agree with it practically and put ourselves under it. But the doctrinal talks have just failed. We had 4 negotiators in those talks. They came back from Rome and they said the talks have failed. We are dealing with madmen. We are dealing with men who are completely immersed into modernism. And even the Romans themselves admit that the rift is huge. And that's why there cannot be a practical agreement with the new Rome. As of now, not possible. And secondly, the promise was, if we sign, we will refer it first to the General Council. So why was the signature prepared for the month of May? It's a lack of form of due process. It's a breach of trust. If you give a promise, you have to keep it. That's the essence of fidelity. You make a promise, you keep it. You cannot say that the circumstances are changing, because all those who break their promises say precisely that. The circumstances are changing, therefore I am not bound to my promise. And then also, did we give consideration of the process which is going to happen to all those congregations that are helping us, and they will be on their own, dealing with Rome. The Dominicans, the Benedictines, the Capuchins, the Carmelites, and all the others, orders of nuns and orders of men. What's going to happen to them? And what's going to be the canonical settlement of our marriage cases? What's going to be? What are they going to say about us convalidating their confirmations? That we don't recognize that their confirmations are valid for certain. Same thing with the holy orders. We convalidate novice order priests to make sure they are validly ordained. What are they going to say to that? So due process analyzes everything. And there is a failure to understand the meaning of the word agreement. A practical agreement with Benedict XVI is when it goes and says the traditional Mass. Because when I'm going to say the Mass now, I am going to use my practical intellect to consecrate the body and the blood of our Lord Jesus Christ. I am using my practical intellect. That's the practical intellect. That's the practical agreement with Rome means. A practical agreement means that we agree in practice. We have the same practice. There's a harmony of practice. Now if you make a nice, wonderful Death Star, self-flying canonical structure, that canonical structure is a monstrosity if it's coordinated with something that does the opposite. You got two opposites. You are already engineering a split. Because there is the practice of the two is opposite already. You try to patch it together for a while, you know, with cables, with super glue and everything, but the two things, you know, are moving in the opposite direction. So it's not an agreement. Don't call it an agreement. It's a patching of opposites, but it's not an agreement. And as far as a doctrine. A doctrinal agreement is a rejection of the text itself of Vatican II. Vatican II is dead because it's ambiguous. And we had so many congresses and reunions of theologians clearly stating and proving that you cannot separate Vatican II from its modernism. You cannot. It's proven. We've said it many times over. So, and we have to remember Pascendi. To remember that, you know, modernism is a mixture of truth and error, the flipping of pages, with one page which is traditional, the next page is modernist. The changing of concepts, the diluting of the truth, even though it's maybe in a very small proportion. So, an agreement with Rome would be the condemnation of Vatican II and the condemnation and the forbidding of the new Mass. So we are not yet there, it seems. And then there's this increase in us of gullibility. We become more and more gullible and believe that, you know, the Pope means well and everything. Especially with these Rosary Crusades. Those Rosary Crusades where we come bouquet in hand, you know, and telling Rome that we have something to buy from them. The 2007 Rosary Crusade was about the Mass. So we are asking the liberation of the Mass. And we said, of course, we grant you what your bouquet is so pleasingly asking us to grant. But you have to recognize Vatican II, and you have to recognize the superiority of the Novus Ordo Mass, because it is the ordinary rite. You only can say the traditional rite on exceptional circumstances. They simply repackage. It's a repackaging of the previous tyrannical conditions of the motu proprio of 1984. It's a mere repackaging. That's all we got. A nice wrapping of things. That's the result of our millions of rosaries. And then there's the other crusade. It's for declaring. We ask Rome. We're asking you to declare that the excommunication was invalid. And same as Rome. Of course, yes. We lift the excommunication with both hands. Oh, thank you, Rome, thank you, Rome. But wait a minute. They lift the excommunication, which means Archbishop Lefebvre died excommunicated, or died in his sins. Does Our Lady do such a bad, sloppy job? No. What we are looking for is the truth. The truth about Archbishop Lefebvre. Because if you just leave the excommunication, Archbishop Lefebvre committed a grave sin of schism and got excommunicated rightly in 1988. How can we allow ourselves to sign to this? And then there are all these nights of prayer and adoration with Benedict XVI for life, in December 2010. And again, that was bad timing, because at the same time, Benedict XVI mellows on the doctrine of artificial contraception, denies the natural order of things. So we're going to join him in prayer to defend the natural order while he destroys the natural order on the other side. How we are so gullible. And so next item is the belief in general evolution. We say that you can't change the Pope right away. It's like, you have to talk to the sinner a little bit. The shepherd runs after the sheep. You must show charity to Benedict XVI. He's trying to do his best. He's not all that bad and everything. And some of us say that St. Basil or St. Gregory were changing the concepts in front of the semi-Arians to bring them back into the church. I don't think so. They allowed for a time some imprecise wordings, but they made sure at the same time that they would explain the concepts to the semi-Arians, to the semi-heretics, and allow them back into the church. And secondly, they were working from a position of strength. We are not in a position of strength. If you make concessions in a position of weakness, it means that you are going to lose, necessarily. So if you want to have supper with the devil, you need to have a long spoon. If Benedict XVI is causing death, you must have a distance. You cannot go and embrace, you're going to fall into his traps. So actually, I believe the one who should be put in charge of the relation with Rome and the relations with the media is Bishop Williamson. Because there is no risk of us, getting deceived. We must keep that distance. I remember a rickshaw in India, he had 2 stickers on the back. God is love, keep distance. So God is love, keep distance with the new Rome. If you want to keep the love of God, for the love of God. The solution to the crisis of the church is like an exorcism, where you adjure, you force the devil to come out. But not a solution of dialoguing and gradually persuading the devil to leave the levers of command, the control panel of the church. You don't beg the devil like that. You order him. That's how he comes out. We request the Pope to do his job as Pope and to stop the massacre of souls. And we are not jumping in the water to catch fish. That's the other comparison that you need to study. We cannot draw any souls. We have drawn all of you, my dear faithful, by staying from above the water. We didn't catch you from the Novus Ordo places. We didn't catch your souls by saying the Mass near the Cathedral of Seoul. We caught you by opening this chapel here. We are above the water and we draw you into this chapel. And we've been so effective at finding souls. Even though we are a few priests in Asia, in the Philippines now we have 4,000 faithful. We have 1,000 pilgrims at the Bohol pilgrimage. So we are effective. There is no need to doubt that what we are doing is really what is showing Rome where to go as far as the conversion of the faith. And then also what's worrying is the doctrinal flaking. When the head says that there is no problem anymore with the council itself, but with its interpretation. When, in their minds the doctrine of religious liberty is not clear anymore. We don't believe in religious liberty because look at the consequences in South America. The Protestant preachers must be stopped from preaching in Catholic states. That's the meaning of religious liberty. Because as a result you see the damnation of so many millions of South Americans at the hands of the Protestant sects that are so good and have so much money and logistics to seduce people, promising them Jesus in exchange of divorce. So religiously complicated. And also, you know, Pius IX was a liberal, but he became very strong. And Arthur Lefebvre also believed in religious liberty when he was a seminarian, but he became strong. So let us judge nobody so far. But we must not mellow our doctrinal stand. And then lastly, what's happening is a gradual and authoritarian coercion to the resistance to change of the society. Some priests are resisting these changes, and they are being coerced. I'm not guaranteed that I will preach to you next month. And we are being coerced. And you know, we are denied publications. When our publication is too harsh, it's denied publication. So this is happening. This is typical of Vatican II. And we are being threatened. We are being told, if you don't agree with the stance of the society, leave. Well, I was not ordained priest in order to uphold the stance of the Society of St. Pius X. I'm ordained a priest to uphold the Catholic faith. Now, blessed be God if the society follows that Catholic stance, the Catholic faith. And the other threat is that you are causing revolution within the Society of St. Pius X. But no, it's the truth that only causes unity. And it's only the truth that is against revolution. If you touch the truth, you are the revolutionist. No matter how much you wear the tiara, the cope, and the pontifical regalia. It's Vatican II happening again in the Society of St. Pius X. And then third threat, you don't have the grace of state. You are not in charge. How dare you, dictating the policy to your superiors? Well, if you touch the DNA of the society, which is a truth, don't be surprised that you have a cancer. Because you are changing the code, the operating code of this congregation that was founded by Arthur Lefebvre in order to maintain the faith. You don't touch the DNA. But this whole plot was hopefully countered. Especially by these letters of the three bishops and the answer of the Bishop Fele and the General Council. Once this letter was out, the conspiracy was finished, because then everybody wakes up, what's going on? We didn't know that we were so far advanced into being sold out to the new Rome. And then, sure enough, there had to be lots of backtracking and explanation to be made. So thankfully the plot has been held by three bishops. And you have three bishops trying to hold Mansingen in a different way. One is a big mouth, Bishop Williamson. The other one is a big intellect, that's Bishop Tissier. And the other one is very prudent on a practical level, that's Bishop Galarreta. So one is a cat, a big cat, that roars, that makes lots of noise. The other one is a lamb, very patient. And the last one flies really high, that's Bishop Galarreta. And so the big mouth, it tries to stop Bishop Fele himself. The big brain tries to open the hood of the mind of Benedict XVI, Bishop Tissier de Malaga. And the last one, Bishop Galarreta, tries to show and shows everywhere in the world that this the practical agreement with Rome is a monstrosity and leads to so much chaos and disorder in tradition. The cat comes hard and hot. It's arrogant, it's in your face. The lamb, the Bishop Tissier is very cold approach to the errors of Vatican II and the errors of Benedict XVI especially. He analyzed everything, puts it flat, analyzed all the samples, and it's clear, like the light of day, that Benedict XVI hasn't got the faith. And then the last one is very soft, talks to Bishop Fele. You need one to whom Bishop Fele doesn't want to talk to, and you need one to whom Bishop Fele really doesn't mind to talk to. And then one in the middle, which is completely cold. You have the three different options. And as a consequence, there are weaknesses, because Bishop Williamson gets Bishop Fele too angry. But Bishop Tissin-Marae gets Bishop Vallée completely indifferent. Bishop Vallée doesn't pay attention to his analysis of the thought of Benedict XVI. And his publication was barred in the United States. Bishop Vallée didn't do anything against that. So he doesn't pay any attention to the work of Bishop Tissin-Marae. Bishop Galarreta doesn't get Bishop Vallée angry enough so that he rescinds the prepared agreement. But there are effects, advantageous effects on Bishop Vallée. That Bishop Vallée would like to expel Bishop Williamson, but he can't. He can't expel him. He's a bishop, and he's not done enough yet to be expelled. And because Bishop Williamson is still in the Society of St. Pius X, the French bishop rushed into Rome and says, don't take these people back in as long as Bishop Williamson is within the SSPX. So Bishop Vallée would love to expel Bishop Williamson so that the Society of St. Pius X could join the new Rome. But he can't expel Bishop Williamson. So as long as Bishop Williamson is within the SSPX, then the Romans, you know, they plug their nose. Because they can't even smell the SSPX as long as the Bishop Williamson is within the society. That's why I told Bishop Williamson, you are the skunk of the society. You are our savior because you are such a skunk. And then he laughed. He says, François, you are a clown. Yes, I am. Because they can't smell us as long as Bishop Williamson is in. That's why it's very important for the mellowers, you know, within us they all pray that Bishop Williamson be expelled of the Society of St. Pius X. The effect of Bishop Tissier on Bishop Vallée's mind is that Bishop Vallée cannot refute Bishop Tissier. He doesn't care about what he says, but he cannot refute him either. And so, as a consequence, the society cannot debate doctrinally with the New Rome successfully. We cannot agree in a debate with the New Rome. Because you got the Bishop Tissier and like minds like Father de Jorna, Father Glaise, Bishop Galarreta, or the negotiators of the Father de la Roque, they got the same analysis as Bishop Tissier. And so we are never ever going to have a doctrinal agreement, at least those who think in the Society of St. Pius X are never ever going to have a doctrinal agreement with the New Rome, because it's still a New Rome, it's still there. And then the effect of Bishop Galarreta is that Bishop Vallée would love to disagree with Bishop Galarreta, but he can't. Because Bishop Galarreta comes out so nicely, so charitably, and so clearly. All those people who meet Bishop Galarreta, they all say, you give Bishop Galarreta a question, a problem, and a big knot, and then he unties the knot just in a few seconds, and everything becomes completely clear. There's such a clarity of expose and a swiftness in resolution of pastoral matters involving doctrine. It is so clear that, yeah, you would like to disagree with him, you would like to sign with Rome, but you can't. Because it's so clear. Because Bishop Galarreta is showing everybody what's going to happen to our nuns, what's going to happen to our monks, what's going to happen to the question of the marriage, the question of the sacraments, all these canonical questions. This is a big mountain of problems that you are piling up. It's a monstrosity because you are trying to patch two things that want to go to the opposite direction. And that's why the effect on the New Rome, that the New Rome can't ever bring about a practical deal with the SSPX. So the signing is postponed and everything, and it's where we have not signed yet. And so the final result is that the New Rome and the SSPX remain separate. We remain separate until the papacy converts. Until it converts. And that's victory, my dear faithful. These are our victory conditions. The papacy returns to the faith. And then the society returns to the papacy. That's the victory we are looking for. The other one is just the appearance of victory. It's a plastic, fake victory. And I've got nothing to do with it. So you can wonder why Bishop Vallée, took on 3 bishops. So, because they are his biggest obstacle to cross. a small fry priest can be blown to pieces, very easily. But when you can't expel 3 bishops that easily. Now, when the resistance of the 3 bishops got exposed, then it gave a new hope to all of us who really want the society to stay in that same stand until the tempest is over. Many priests are scared. Some priests are very angry and speak openly, clumsily, like yours truly. But we don't have the same graces as bishops. We are not bishops, but we've got to do our job, which is to warn you and to keep your faith safe, so that you can give your charity the mission, the mass of the society. You can keep your God dwelling within your hearts. So we've been able to push back the signing with Rome, but nothing is to be taken for granted. That situation is continual, is always changing day by day. It's you got priests switching sides and everything. You got diocese districts where truth is suppressed. You got districts where truth is completely exposed, like Mexico or England, or even Asia to a certain extent. And so lies are shifting all the time. So what is going to happen in this summer of 2012 is going to determine, certainly, the shape of the battle of the SSPX for many years to come. So my dear faithful, the war is still on. And when the war is on, you war on. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Ghost, amen.